And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are on the blue planet. My camera is not focused in. I'm trying to get her moving in correctly here. Something seems to be off, but that is okay as we wander through this crazy world that we call life. And the camera's completely off. Do you think you can help me here? Hold on a second. I'm hearing the echo in the background there too. So let me turn that right there. There we go. I'll monitor the comments a little bit tonight as well.
You're looking good.
All right, looking good. Well, feeling good is good enough as well. Looking magic. I'm just pulling it with my mental. I'm pulling the camera in. I'm just levitating it. Wow. So the world has spun again, hasn't it, Ransom? It seems like it from last week that something has jumped again in terms of intensity, because all the stories I'm seeing right now are this United Nations 2030 agenda with the censorship coming in. And there seems to be a global movement to try to stop anything that gives credence or shines light on the Agenda 2030 sustainability goals that move us closer into communism. And they're trying to prevent people like you and me from talking about that. And an entire list of these overseer NGOs now are going to start going out and looking in every single platform, including websites, to try to do the same thing they did prior, to go up, knock on the door and say, hey, you can't monetize these people. It's not about medical information now. It's not about climate misinformation now. The pendulum has swung over to, if you're trying to talk about anything that goes against those multiple dozens of goals, then suddenly that puts almost everybody who has their own free opinion in danger right now. Of the public discourse of just talking about something will suddenly get your channel, your website, your podcast, your way of living banned, or like to say, demonetization is the first step. So it's the United Nations talking about this as we move into this global governance biometric system. And by the way, if I might add, since we had our last show, Vietnam, of all places, Vietnam is now requiring all foreigners that live in the country to go through and get their biometric ID, which includes a retinal scan, all 10 fingerprints, face, that sort of thing. In Vietnam, that was one of the last. You would never think in Southeast Asia it would be first and rolled out there, but it is. And these are all the things that have, in addition to the economy and just an enormous amount of other things. I have a bunch of links set up for tonight, as well as Ransom, when we look through this. Rental companies now, they're going to be using AI damage detectors to be able to assess your cars when you bring it back. Now, the thing is, even the tiniest micro scratch is now going to be billed. And as we look at a few other articles, we got meat shortages coming in, beef shortages. Beef is soaring to record highs. And, I had never thought I would be spending $7 or $9 for a pound of ground beef. That's almost, unthinkable at that point. But we have the demystification, UN launching the task force to combat global disinformation on their Agenda 2030 goals. So the episode tonight is going to go deep. And we saw that Delta Airlines is now they're rolling out AI to try to charge you on an individual basis, depending on how much money they think they can extract from you based on your browsing history and other metrics, which should not allow them to be that discriminatory based on your credit score and your perceived information search online. They've already categorized you in ransom. We talked about it a million times. What happens when you start putting in categories because of AI that's doing, we talked last week about, the wearables. They're going to categorize your insurance company into unfit and then fit or not, or alcohol consumption or not, tobacco consumption or not, or whatever you put in your body, chemicals, pills, prescriptions, and then that insurance company will adjust your rate based on your wearables. Well, this is going to be no different. Now they're tracking all of your website history, bought and paid for through your IP address. And these companies are out scouring the data net to try to charge you more and different prices than they would charge. Like ransom will look at something different. I'll look at something, and we're going to get two different prices. And they're trying to extract as much money out of everybody as they can. So this wealth transfer continues. And Ransom, welcome to the show. Take it away. Civilization Cycle podcast. Thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for those that have already bought us some double espressos on buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. We're going to read out the notes to you in just a second here. But Ransom, take it away. And what are we seeing this week beside madness all around? The net continues to tighten around the world's populace.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. They're getting a stranglehold on information right now. And what I mean by that is I'm giving it 5 years, and there will be no way for you to search through the internet except for through the lens of a few mega corporations owned AI. And that's already been happening. Here's one right here that's talking about, is AI killing Google? And no, it's quite the opposite, because they came out with their little droid AI answer for everything you search. So they put that first, and they know that the way people are, they'll get lazy over time, and they'll just start taking that for granted as being the truth. And I've already been, jumping in it. You can argue with the AI and make it agree with you by showing you articles, but the very next time you go back, it'll be reset to its bias that it already had. And here's another one.
Or they'll just cut you off. I've had that happen when you argue with an AI, and then you force them to give you an answer, and then it just shuts off completely.
Right. It gets too deep for the AI, basically. No, here's one that's funny, because it's talking about a ban on the woke AI. You know that they're pitching these different legislations to control AI from the UN, from world government level, all the way down to each individual government. And just like we warned, they're tying that into biometrics and everything. So they're keeping track of the way that you search, or what you know, or how you know it. And here's one, like, it's kind of biased to the people that wrote this. The White House orders tech companies to make AI bigoted again. And actually what it's talking about is this bill supposedly to prevent AI models themselves from being infused with partisan bias. But I'm saying that's impossible, because it's already going. Who cares about politics and partisan? Everything that you're going to be searching is going to be biased from either the company putting out its own studies into the AI for that to be the first reference thing. And I mean, from everything from agriculture to the human DNA. And you were talking a minute ago about the wearables, the peripherals that people use, like rings and watches and their phone. And I mean, there's all kinds of different ones. People are now entering the era of the smart everything. So the whole house can now be controlled by an app. And that's all fantastic and everything, except for the fact that you have to realize that each one of these have sensors, and they work in a network that collects all of this metadata, which includes your health activities. Like, how many times did you get up from the couch? How many times did you go to the bathroom in the day? What's your DNA, profile? Does it say that you're prone to cancer? Does it say that you're prone to this, that, or the other thing as far as it comes to diseases? And then when you go look at the internet itself, you have all of these AIs different startups fighting for control of search engines. So a lot of, like Grok and Chat GPT and OpenAI and all of these things came out to give you an alternative to the Google search results. But what's happening is the already in place kind of big brother system that Google represents. If you remember, they were getting into ideas about antitrust because they own everything. They own YouTube. They own this, that. Whatever it is, they have a grip on it. So they're using their own AI to skew search results to go to the businesses, ads, articles, everything that they want you to look at. Now, I think the only people that are going to start noticing this are people that research things specifically in fields like whether or not you research anthropology, or you research climatology, or you research financial data or trends or something like that. Now you're going to have to compete with an algorithm that says that it doesn't matter what you know, this is what we're saying it is, and this is the same result that everybody else is going to give. And I really think it's weird that you were talking about Vietnam, because it seems like, things are starting to pop off in the Asian arena when it comes to this reset. So like I was just looking at, and ironically, the same thing, like it's the same old story as in the Middle East, where you have little skirmishes breaking out, but they just so happen to be where some of the oldest ancient human development, settlement, and history is. And if I can find it right
Well,
here.
that's why you love my background for tonight. Egyptian fans, I'm taking you down into the hieroglyphs here.
Yeah, I think it was Thailand and Cambodia. Yeah, here it is. Thailand and Cambodia clash over contested border region. But when you look at what they did is they literally went and bombed some of these old,
Yeah, those
super
are the
old
Khmer
sites.
Rouge. Those are the Khmer Rouge, not Khmer Rouge, but the old Khmer, like is in Angkor Wat, Khmer
Right,
Empire ruins,
right.
right there on the border. There were a whole bunch right there, right on the border of Thailand. Oh
I
no,
mean,
they didn't blow those up. They did not really.
yeah, they said,
Oh
let's see what
no,
the
that's
guy
World
says.
Heritage stuff. Come on now.
Significant damage. So
Oh
it's
man,
exactly
why'd they
like
do that?
what was going on in the Middle East, right? We
Oh, you
armed, funded,
morons!
and
What are you
trained
doing?
ISIS there. They went and blew up all those Buddhas. They went and blew up all that Sumerian stuff
Uh,
like that.
Hey,
So it's
let me share a screen with you too. Here, I want to show you something here. I want to share the screen. I want to get on this one here, quick one. But while we're doing that, so this company Wink. Before we jump onto that one, see these people had smart homes, and one company bought out another company and then forced them to go on to a subscription model, or they would make all the devices that ran their smart homes no longer available to work. So they basically are bricking their house. And apparently this is going to cost some 5,000 US dollar a year. Now there's several of them. They said $499, but then suddenly some people across Reddit were saying, wait, we're getting charged up to $5,000 a year. This thing is like, a couple hundred, more than a few $100s per month. It was 500 and something. So they think that was a misprint. It's $499 a month. So there's a lot of conjecture what's going on, but you can see right there, if they're going to brick your house because you don't want to pay, they were giving them a certain amount of time to move over, and then none of the devices in their entire home were going to work. Oh, that's even the wrong company. That's why it's so low. This is a newer article, but these types of things are happening all over the place. Like the services that you thought you once had are no longer available. They're obsolete, and you're going to have to pay more, or else nothing is going to work in your life anymore. Imagine when it's your car.
or a regulated network that you have to use for all your appliances to work. And by the way, you remember I would say over the last 15 years, they've slowly tried to pitch this idea of buying new new appliances, new refrigerators, new stoves, all of this stuff, but for the reason of energy consumption, right? They sold you this new stuff because it's more efficient, and supposedly over the year it would cost less money, electricity, but it really didn't work out that way. And now think about this. They're adding all these smart components to everything that eats up a lot more electricity for processing power. And that's we have this grid that needs to be completely renovated, and it's collapsing. So it's kind of weird that they're trying to pitch all of these things that you get services streaming. Like, just imagine the entertainment, and then you have all of these other apps where you pay monthly subscriptions for everything from news to like people coming to fix things around your house. Everything's moving to that model. I'm sure you've seen the or possibly seen the commercials where they're selling like maintenance men that come to your house if you pay the subscription. So it's going to that insurance model of just pay them every month for nothing, and then maybe one day if something happens, they'll come help you out. Or I've also seen them really pitching this idea of having some guy at the other end of a video call that teaches you or shows you how to fix something, like whether it's your car or your refrigerator. And they're setting up thousands and thousands of video calls with these customers, and they don't realize that soon all of that was just video that they were capturing so they could create the AI later that will be the only one that answers that. So you'll be talking to the AI trying to tell you how to fix, but you can't fix that because that'll void your warranty. So it end up being where you can't fix anything, and it's just a joke. It's a subscription to nothing. And they're getting to where they're controlling all this information country by country. And it's really weird that you brought up Vietnam with the biometrics, because they're implementing these things on a local basis, and they're also blaming international trade, tariffs, and other things is why they have to get on board and do these things so that they can do business with the other countries. And it all amounts to a universal biometric ID that they're going to link to money. I mean, that you're not going to be able to buy anything if you're not on their system, period. And that's how they're
those
setting it up.
stablecoin acts that were passed last week, all the three of those, that was the end of the dollar as you know it, and we're moving to the stablecoin standard. And those of you who don't know this, what happens on August 1st of this year? Just a little bit over a week from today, $7 trillion of our debt comes to renewal, and people are looking at this saying, "Wait a minute, there's not going to be enough buyers for this debt." So the whole stablecoin thing that we see is, yay, companies can issue it. We've come to a new standard. So the dollar that we knew and we grew up is gone. It is absolutely being and has been in the process of a substitution phase right now. They're not going to call it something new. They're just still going to call it the dollar. It's just going to be a stablecoin backed digital dollar. This is what we're moving to, because by pledging your house and my house, my car, that building, that land, my land, that all has a value to it, and then they can issue the stable coins against it. See, that's the whole thing they keep promising everybody, is it needs to be backed by something, that the $1 will be, the stable coin has a backing and a peg of $1 to the stable coin. It doesn't matter if it's an RLUSD or USDT or USDC or whatever. And a lot of companies are even offering their own now stablecoin $1 issuance, but it's still pegged to $1. And the only thing they can peg it to $1 to are physical assets. So think about how much money there is in America in physical assets, from the mining to the factories, to the railroads, the locks, to the everything that can possibly be owned by a company in the Fortune 1000, or even private companies or LLCs or single proprietorships. My house, everybody else, any asset anywhere in America is going to be into it. And they're going to assign a dollar value to it, and then they're going to reissue the stable coins. But all they're doing is just shuffling the debt around because we can't repay it. So all I'm saying is August 1st is a significant day for America here in terms of look for some distraction to happen, is all I would say with that. You can't have $7 trillion come due, and there's supposed to be all these available buyers that will soak up $7 trillion. There's just not. There's not. So then where does it go from here? It's a question, because Japan, they were having their own ridiculous, unbelievable difficulties with their finances there in their bond market, and they're also debt from the government, and then there's rice shortages over there, and people are unhappy, and China's collapsing in their real estate. They had to pump as much money as they've ever pumped into their economy ever since the great financial crisis to keep the real estate market from totally collapsing again right now. So everywhere you look, people are getting rid of dollars anyway. They want to go to the BRICS system, and they want to get this swappable gold on the difference between the transactions. Because Andy Schectman, who I've done a couple interviews with before up at Miles Franklin. He had a great interview and was talking about the M Bridge, which is a digital movement of monies. That's going to be sort of the cornerstone that comes through the Middle East and with the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Now, the gold's going to be distributed across the planet, and there's different clearing houses. So if Russia has 50,000 tons of iron ore and they want to swap out for, I don't know, 20,000 tons of manganese, it's not going to be exactly equal on the pricing. So the difference on that will be settled in gold. And there's going to be all these clearing houses for gold, so you can take physical delivery for it. And it's going to be pegged again to whatever stablecoin issuance or M-Bridge issuance, or they used to call it the unit, whatever it would be. It's going to also have something that's going to be a physical asset behind it to give it the value of 1 equals something. But it'll be gold settled. Like in America, you're not doing that. You're just getting a digital thing that exists out in the ether that's already repriced into our stuff that's already here in America that we're getting taxed on, that's already been taxed. Double, triple, quadruple into infinity. And we're almost at 38 trillion on the debt, and we can't roll it over. So I don't know. We are seriously at the end of a system here. So the trap is, and the reason I tell you all this is 2027, this is a significant year. We are going to start to do away with American physical US dollars. During the time of 2027, that year, they're going to give you, in the beginning of the year, the warning or the happy announcement that you're going to have to turn in your paper money. And that paper money will be converted to a digital dollar. You're going to come into the USD stablecoin of your bank of your choice. Usually the top 12 big banks in America are going to be issuing these stable coins for the government as well as their own stable coins. For like JP Morgan has its own stable coin. Bank of America has its own stable coin. Wells Fargo has its own. All right, so these all have their own stable coins based on the value of these banks and the assets they hold in the banks, like a house title. They could say David's house and land is worth this much, and we can do a 1-to-1 for that, so we can issue stable coins based on David's land. And each bank's going to issue their own, but then they're also going to have another layer behind, which is our government's debt stable coins, which is a 1-to-1 based on like national land holdings and mining rights and all these things, oil reserves inside the ground, whatever. You are going to have to turn in your money. But here's where it gets scary, because I know they're not just going to go, oh, great, here's 20 grand in cash. They're probably going to want accounting for every single dollar of it in your tax through all the times you've worked. I was, hey, I squirrel money away, because I don't trust the system. So every paycheck I've been saving $200 for the last 15 years. And I have 20 grand now, or whatever you want to do with your math on that. And they're going to go, well, no, we need to see receipts where all your money came from. And we can't change you in because you don't have the receipts for this, which turns into the black market somewhere because somebody's going to want to get in on it. But you can't, because it's digital at that point and everything's tracked and traced. Like these next couple of years, winding into 2030 with the Agenda 2030 sustainability goals, in addition to the transition of our cash in 2027, is the best of my knowledge and the most up-to-date information that I have as of yesterday. 2027 is the start point where we get rid of the physical money in our country. And everything at that point goes digital from that moment along, I saw it happen to the Kuna over in Croatia when I was traveling there. It was sad to see all those people lost their money. They couldn't get into the banks, and the banks weren't open enough to get everybody, and they got boxes of money, and it's just worthless at the end of that. So if you don't cash your dollars in, they're going to be worth zero at the end of that. If you don't get the digital equivalent, all that paper money could be hundreds. It doesn't matter. They're going to zero if you don't cash it in. So then what? Then, then it comes to the world where Ransom and I are talking about here. You are going to be tightly controlled. And by the way, Starlink went down today completely globally. The entire global network of Starlink went down. So if you think, well, I'll just be like a global citizen and hop on Starlink because I don't have to go through the hoops and hurdles of signing on to my local internet and getting the ISP with a digital retinal scan so I can get online. I'll just go to Starlink. They just shown the vulnerability of that entire global network being down. Something very, very wrong is happening. That was supposed to be the darling, child of communications, track and trace. And this is how they were monitoring forests and how they were going to do carbon sequestration credits by covering every square inch of the earth. Part of that was just not communications up there. Part of that was with LiDAR, scanning the forests. So every square inch of our planet was being utilized in terms of giving it value. This is where the stablecoin issuance comes in, because if they can measure out every square meter of our earth, then there can be a price associated with that. Whether it's a grassland and they give you $1 per acre on the sequestration on straight grass, and then you let it grow for another 2 years, and then they give you $4 an acre because it's got some taller, smaller saplings growing on it. And then after 5 years, you get a different rate of, I think it's $12. And then it goes on from there until you get to old growth, or like what you consider 100-year-old forests, where you're getting like $200 an acre. Like every single step of this is going to be mapped out and on a digital system, paid, swapped around. And, I feel sad for a lot of people. They don't understand this is coming, and they don't even, like, I'm speaking, I could be reading these hieroglyphs behind me, even talking about digital transference. And I got some Bank for International Settlements here too, on the way they're going to, let me show you this one quick here. I know I'm rambling, Ransom, but let me jump on this one and pop up on my Bank for International Settlements here. I thought you might like this one, because here it is, the Pine Project. So this is what the workings of our world are moving to from here. The central bank is on the far left there. And they don't really tell you if it's the Bank for International Settlements, or if it's the World Bank or International Monetary Fund, or if it's actually central banks of each individual nation. But then they're the ones that are going to issue. So we're beyond now debt in terms of American debt or UK debt or whatever, Canadian debt. It is going to a central bank, and I think it's going to be more on the global level, because they keep pushing this whole global everything. They're going to be the one that are going to issue anything financial from that point, and it's all going to be on the blockchain. So here's your flow model of how it works. They're going to be digitizing securities. They're going to digitize real estate. They're digitizing all financial instruments, whatever that entails. Anything that could have a financial backing to it that can be swapped out. And then that finally makes it to your bank, what I'm talking about, the JP Morgan stable coins. And then it moves from there. So this whole JP Morgan thing today, also, they were saying that they want to issue loans against your crypto. So a lot of people are offering Bitcoin backed loans. They don't even check your credit. You got Bitcoin. It's like a tier 1 capital. It's like walking in with a bar of gold. I don't care what your previous history was, bro. You got a kilogram of gold, I'll give you a loan. Give me that brick of gold and we'll back it. And I don't care what you did in your past. You got a kilogram of gold bar right there, I'll give you a loan. Same thing with Bitcoin. So a lot of like Arch Capital and Lantern Finance, and there's a whole bunch of other ones out there that were saying, give us a Bitcoin. You can take up to like 50% of the Bitcoin's value. We'll give you a loan. Just Bitcoin. I don't care what you did. We'll give you 50 grand. Or it's 60 now because it's at $1.20, $1.20 and 120,000. But JP Morgan wants you to do the same thing. Now, just with a straight face, JP Morgan wants you to give your keys to your Bitcoin to JP Morgan, and they want to give you a loan against that. Now, do you think they're ever going to give you your Bitcoin back? Never. I could never, even in my wildest dreams, consider giving any crypto to JP Morgan to get a loan. But this is where that whole flow is right there, those blue circles. And then it comes down to the assets. And you see that little tiny green dot way down there? That's you sandwiched between the corporations over there. That little green dot is you. Everything else is that behemoth of instruments around you, all digital. So if you don't want to play in their world, then there's going to be no other way. So this is what I don't like, is we're all getting trapped into this thing. I don't know if there's going to be another way to get out of this, because everywhere you look, there's no way to escape this so encompassing machine. Even if you're paying property taxes, that's going to go digital, where you're going to have to. Now, some states have said gold and silver is going to be good to pay property tax. But at what point can't you even operate to even go into a store, because your biometrics are going to be scanned, and you're going to have to use the stable coin of the country or the banks that issue that for you to even be able to buy anything, because they won't take your round of silver in a supermarket. That's going to be 100% digital. How are you going to do, unless you deal just in the farm community? but you're going to need to buy petrol, or you're going to need repair parts. You're going to need to get some lumber for repairs. Oh no, sorry, Home Depot only takes USD stable coins now. What are you going to do? Like the net is really starting to get tight right now. So for me, with the equivalent balance of global crop yields declining to the point of famine and social unrest, the clamping and control needs to tighten as fast as that crop yield declines are being noticed by the general populace. So there's this teeter-totter balance. You know, you teeter-totter as a kid, you try to stay in balance there. Well, this balance moving forward is governments understand hungry people do crazy and strange things. So the crop losses and the amount of food price rises that will spark civil unrest is going to be matched by the amount of control put on top of the populace in advance to stop that from occurring to the level where it will be uncontrollable. So for me right now, I'm going, it's getting dangerously close to our food prices are going to get so astronomically ridiculous at the end of this harvest season here, when it comes in really 10%, 15% under what they were predicting. And then you'll start to see why there's so much control coming down, because they might feed us this story about, oh, it's better technology, it's instant settlements, it's this, it's that, for your convenience, and we can track, and there'll be no whatever, money laundering or bribery from the politicians. Okay. But what it really is, I think, is a soft rationing system that is being put in place in front of the food shortages. So you come at it from that way, because if you're going to have to sell the populace on, by the way, we're coming into global food shortages and we're going to need to give you these rationing cards, nobody's going to buy that. But if you come at it with, hey, we got all these digital stable coins, and you're going to have biometrics to get in the supermarkets, and it's going to be so much safer, and this and that. See, they're laying the groundwork for it to be nothing more than a digital rationing card tied to your social credit score and your compliance. So, looking at this set of variables, one leads the other. And I'm going to say absolutely the control mechanism that's being put forth to control money, access to food, and mobility, ability to travel, is front running. The control mechanism of that, the tightening of it, is front running where we're sitting on the global crop yield declines. So I would say, about a year ish, because if you've been following this since the COVID time, we got some incredible crop losses in 2019 and 20. It started to spike those food prices anyway. The global financial system was failing. The overnight repo market was almost $1 trillion a night. They needed a loan into the market so the financial system wouldn't collapse. That was 2019 in November. And then 2020, you know what happened with the COVID, everything locked down, endless money printing, nobody asked a question. But what came in at that time too was a lot of awareness. They kept blaming the crop yields on people not being able to get in the fields. Or was it the magnetic field and the jet streams changing? And then we start to see there's really a lot less people wandering around these days. So there's less mouths to feed, and maybe that was a balancing mechanism for a minute. But we've reached that rollover point again where global crop yields are not equivalent to the mouths to feed. Some areas are hit harder than others. The rice crop this year, at least 10%. But that's a major staple crop for a lot of, Asian nations and Africa. We're more on the wheat side over here. So at what point do governments come to the point where they need to start controlling who has access to food under the guise of a new system to prevent the people from overthrowing the system? Because Al, every time I look in history, there's no way that governments survive angry mobs that are hungry. They'll survive angry mobs, no question. You just throw the police out there, eventually they'll stop protesting or whatever. But if they're hungry, they will never stop protesting, because the only thing driving them to the protest is the hunger. And unless you can stop the hunger, you will never stop the uprising. So that's got its own feedback loop in it. So if you knew that was coming, you would definitely tighten the reins of control in advance. And I really believe and see this, and all the data is showing that these repeating cycles and the data and all these metrics and these log scales are showing that we're coming up to something on a rollover anyway, on just pure data points, that we've hit sort of a wall. And then you start to throw that last magic sprinkled ingredient of how much food's available. And then I think that's the alchemical ingredient that gives it the wow super secret sauce, because something has gone terribly awry where suddenly the governments need this much control of all the citizens on the planet. They need to know where they are and give them a new money system and allow them only to go into some places, only if they show their retinas. That's bizarro world. Why did it switch so quick? That should be another thing. Like, you can't tell me the world switched that much in 5 years. And in the last 150, it was creeping along unchanged. A couple world wars in here, some new technology from the radios and telephones and things, air conditioners. But you're telling me in 5 years, we switched the world and squeezed it so hard, so fast, that we haven't seen anything like this. I don't know, the collapse of the Roman Empire, maybe. Something in the bubonic plague, perhaps. But it switched so fast in 5 years or under. We are in a completely different operating system. And you need to, you got to step back objectively and say, why would they make this much change so sloppily at this time? And then we come to this rollover point here. August 1st is going to be a very pivotal moment for not only the United States, but the world, because so much is tied into the US dollar. So I'm curious how this debt's going to roll over, because I don't see it. So anyway, Ransom, that was a long rant on the economy there, but please, if anybody, and thank you for the buy me a coffee here. If I may, someone bought us another. Thank you for the triple double espresso. Thank you, BBB. Allison Bevege, listening from Australia. Love your show. You two do great work. Letters from Australia on Substack. Well, thank you. We'll pass it along. Hopefully, go over there, check it out. I'll check it out after the show. Rhonda Holub, thank you for the 5 double espressos. Well, thank you for that. And Catherine Barlow telling us keep up the good work. Someone again hitting us with the triple double espresso. We'll be shaking at the end of the night with 6 double espressos in us. But anyway, Ransom, any thoughts to follow up on debt, or what you think is going to happen when we can't pay our bills? And then it's so obvious that we can't. And then the food shortages hit at the same time. And we get like these 2 massive events overlaying in history, which we never see, usually 2 at the same time. It's 1, but 2, I don't know how it might play out. Mike?
I was kind of thinking it, I'm trying to go down your line of thinking here. Really sometimes it's like you're reading my computer. Maybe you have some spying software. I don't know.
I do actually. I embedded it on you. I've sent a file over and put a rat file in that thing.
You threw a lot of ideas out there, and it just works right into kind of where I was going with this. Not so much the AI. The AI is just the tool right now to shape the way things are going. Yeah. And it all intertwines with kind of what you were saying. You brought up this concept about price based on your individual, like who you are, your identity, the price varying on who that is. And if you just kind of wider think of this technological plan that's going on, let me see if I could just roll to an idea and get to the point kind of fast here. So you got this. All right. This was the topic, who gets to decide what you're thinking, what you know, when you know it, and why and where. And that kind of leads into what you were talking about. We just had this Starlink thing go down, right? So all those people that were kind of using that just out one day. But that's okay, because there's always redundant backup plans for global enslavement. And kind of, I'll show you this, my train of thought here. Right here, scientists achieve record 4 Gbps internet using OLED display technology. So basically, this is Wi-Fi, right? And this is the future. It's not just Wi-Fi, it's Li-Fi, which is something that we've talked about the concept many times over the past couple of years, that they could transmit and receive internet just through the LED lights in your home. So let's get to a weird thing here, a weird idea here. Now keep in mind that now most people's houses, or at least modern homes, are now moving to the end of smart houses, not just smart appliances, but smart houses, right? So you have these smart houses, smart cars, smart everything. But there's a counter to every technology. Here's millions of cars at risk from Flipper Zero, a key fob hack, experts warn. And these are kind of old, but this is like a newer, modern one from Russia that just basically unlocks any car. So any car that it goes up to, it can just instantly unlock it, open the trunk, open the doors, open everything that has to do with the security. Now let's move on to this. I keep that idea in mind. I know it's hard to follow along sometimes with me, but Ukraine drone mega deal possible with the U.S. Zelensky says. So this is even more killbots up in the air, and this is a massive contract with the United States to get the United States in the game, just like the counterpart that's doing the most of this, which is Russia and China. So keep that in mind. But remember that key fob idea. It's not just a key fob, it's the technology to unlock codes, access passwords, frequencies that make things do stuff. This is all travels in the infrared, just like your phone that's taking millions of pictures of you a day and keeping a three-dimensional spatial awareness for the computer of every place that you go, everything that you do. And then that moves over to the smart appliances. They're all intertwined. It's all going to be one network. And then you got this. You think they can't hack these big things like your financial database, the banking system, the power grid, all of this stuff? Of course they can. If you can make a key fob that can unlock any car, you can unlock any of these systems that run these, a lot of them going over to AI control and operation. Here's another article. China linked hackers breach U.S. nuclear weapons agency in sophisticated operation. But what they leave out of the article is not telling you that most of the parts in the computers and all of this stuff were made in China in the first place. So our entire surveillance apparatus is tied in with China's surveillance apparatus to the point that I don't think that we're doing anything secret over here in the United States anymore. You want to know how they get all that intellectual property and copy everything? It's because they're tapped into everything, just like the U.S. is also tapped into everything that they can get their hands in over there. That's why they need and have to have the trade between these nations so they can slip in these things. And now it's going to a new sophisticated level where you're able to hack and mess up things. So imagine, I don't know what the reason for the Starlink outage is, but imagine somebody hacked that entire network and just turned it off, which is something that they could do to the power grid. And, you might want to upgrade the power grid if it keeps going out. Largest U.S. power grid issues, max generation alert. They can't promise in 13 states that the power is going to stay on. Here's another one. No spare capacity. Watchdog warns largest U.S. grid is maxed out amid data center build out, right? There, it ties into the AI and the data right there. And then over here,
But they get
Pepco.
priority there, Ransom. Like you and me as a customer down the edge of that, those data centers get priority over you or
Right.
me. We're the last ones on the totem pole, literally at the bottom there. Everybody else above us.
And I'm pretty sure that this is where it's going to go right here. This looks unrelated, but it's not unrelated because all of these old grids are going to have to be replaced, and they're going to sell this idea that to use all your trinkets, all your smart devices, that you have to upgrade your house to be a smart house, or at least have a smart meter that goes in there. So you're going to have to deal with power outages while they upgrade to the new system, where they also install these new programs that run everything. So every one of your devices, every one of your appliances, your car, everything is now tied into this network of Li-Fi, right? Basically, it's light internet. So it won't matter if the satellites are up or not. Every device creates its own internet of things already. And this is where it's going. You're not going to be able to have this new world where wealth is kind of based on an individual or maybe even the nation as a whole. So now you're going to have, things in your house like your refrigerator checking what foods what come through there, so it'll know what to hike prices up with in the entire like the nation economy. So like when you go to the grocery store, after a while, they're going to be having all of these millions and millions of people under data surveillance that says exactly what they buy the most, when they buy it, and they can change the prices, not only based on the individual household, knowing which people buy what and how much of, but as a whole economy-wide price hike for certain items they know people are going to buy more often, because they know that, because the metadata coming from their smart appliances in this new network will be telling everything that you do, how often you wash your clothes, how much water you use. And the electricity will then be based on not only your needs at your home, but your credit score. That's a digital credit score tied to digital money. And think about this. How do you make the money that's out there, if there's only a quantified amount, be more valuable? Well, a lot of people think about deflation, inflation, but the same thing can be said when it comes to humans, the population itself. Now, the US birth rate hits all-time low, CDC data shows, but that's just a drop in the bucket compared to all of the other Western nations having fertility problems, infertility problems, I should say sterility problems, but not just that, a super aging population. And I've talked about this many times. There's always been this hoax out there that there's overpopulation on the world, and instead it's actually overpopulation density in locations only, like in New York City or Beijing or places like that. It's overpopulation in the area. But the problem is that since we've had technology and better medications and things like that, lifespan started to go up. So inevitably, an older population arose from that. And we're not the only ones. Here's this right here. This is the 2025 population forecast by Tinsqua. You should probably say this right here before I mess it
Oh,
up.
let me read. I can't read this screen. Can you make it bigger?
Yeah, there it goes. It's
Oh, that's
the
Tsinghua University. Yeah, it's Tsinghua.
So I got the PDF. I couldn't read Chinese, but this is a good breakdown of it in English. And basically, it's talking about their elderly population dwindling, low fertility scenarios, things like that, aging population, 65 plus population will reach 319 million. And basically, when you go through all this data, you find out that China is about to be 750 million people less by the end of 2040. So they'll be more on par with the population of the United States as is now, except for we also are going to have similar losses here. They're going to have similar losses in the Western world. So what you're going to have is the people that actually own and maintain wealth right now are going to slowly disappear over the next decade and a half, to where only younger and younger populations are in competition for digital money. It's all going to be based on who you are, where you are, and like you were talking about, it fits into this fractionalized wealth system where they just decide how much inherited wealth you own, like what properties you have, how many cars you have. And at some point, they're going to make everyone roll over to this new system that can't be done unless you get rid of the old products. Everything has to go. So they're going to start outlawing older things, saying that, well, in an easy way, I thought that would happen is if your appliance or whatever doesn't work with your old style stuff. So like if you got an old refrigerator, they're going to say, well, you're running this old thing at your house, and we know that through the electricity. You got to turn that off because, we got to save the planet. We got to reduce the energy consumption. You got to have a smart thing by this year, and you'll start seeing that happen. It's the same reason that they tried to phase out the gas stoves. It wasn't about that the gas was bad for the planet. It's the fact that you don't need microchips and a network to run a gas stove. It's just gas, heat, food's cooked. That's it. All of that kind of stuff is going to be moved away. They may
Well, I'm
even
sure they
pass
could.
laws to make it
Well, I'm sure
illegal.
they could see what's in your fridge too. In terms of, again, that's going to peg you into a certain category of persons if you have a certain types of meats or yogurts or fruit and vegetable in your refrigerator compared to just ice cream, store bought, pre-processed foods. You're going to get into a different category of, again, health risk, insurance wise. And for us, we only buy meat that comes from the Amish. I'll get a cow a year, I get a full pig a year, 350-pound hog. Usually, our cattle, we usually get a full beef, is what they call it. If you're going to buy a whole cow, you don't walk up to the farmer and say, I want to buy a whole cow. You just tell me you want to buy a full beef. And ours usually comes in around 1,000, maybe 1,100 pounds. And then we usually get one lamb as well. Then we raise all of our own birds anyway. We got our geese, we got the ducks, got the chickens. So we get those eggs, but then we also get the birds for protein as well. So for me, you look along that chain, if they really were at the AI, were the uber sensitive in these refrigerators, even the type of meat, the quality of meat would be differentiated, and that would put you into either a different risk category based on whatever. Okay, I don't all of it. I call it clean meat because there's no jabba dabba doos in any of the meat that I consume to my very best of the ability. So that would register in the refrigerator as well, there's not this antibiotic in the meat. Wait, something must. Why? How are they eating that? Is that a health risk for them to eat? So even though you have clean meats, like the Amish, they raise their own heirloom corn. They don't even have GM corn that they feed a lot of the animals over there. They raise their own fields of hay. There's no GM. Everything's heirloom, and the corn comes, and it's not the perfect corn that we see for dent corn that you get out of the major fields and say Kansas or something. It comes up, and there might even be different colored kernels in it. So they're raising their own corn, GM or non-GM, excuse me, heirloom, and they do their own hay. They raise everything. They're on spring water over there. And all these animals that are coming through that never get anything injected into them at all. And that's some of the cleanest meat on the planet. But if you're coming through an insurance agency or a USDA facility, they might look at that and go, that's unclean. You can't have that. That's dangerous meat, and that could be the way that it looked at. The purer the food you have, it might be deemed more of a health risk because it didn't go through the full stamp, double checked, 16 things put into it, from birth all the way until it goes to the slaughterhouse or whatever. Like that whole mind frame of that is really safe meat because there couldn't be any diseases that get in the cattle or the chicken or the pigs or whatever, compared to, they're out on a farm and there's none. It must be super dangerous meat because there's none of that modern stuff in the meat. Now, if your refrigerator is that smart that it can, like I say, find those chemicals within or without, that'll put you in a completely different category as well. And I'm sure in premiums will increase because of insurance companies will ding you on the risk of that didn't come through the regular supply chain. You're almost eating banned, protein at that point. What if you go out fishing in your own pond that's a spring-fed pond and you start catching your own fish? Those fish are subsequently in your freezer or in your refrigerator. And the fridge pings it up and says, well, there's no hormones in these fish. These are something wrong with the fish. You start to get in like farm raised. Okay, well, we grow our own vegetables too, but we don't spray them. Well, the heads of lettuce in there, they don't have any glyphosate on them. They don't, there's no like any kind of herbicides or fungicides on it. It must be illegal vegetables. It didn't go through the supply chain. It didn't come through the supermarkets. It wasn't irradiated. It doesn't have that appeal coating on it. So it must be bad, almost dangerous food because it's so pure. There might actually be an insect egg on it that could give you something in your body. So it's not clean. You just got dinged because you were eating unsafe lettuce. This is the way I really see it getting twisted and bent, where those of us that exist outside that want to live in more of a clean way of life will be dinged for that. Now, I'll tell you one story before I let off here. Like I say, I live just very close to an Amish farm up here. But in this little town where there's like 1,000 people that live out here. Population, I think it was 998 as of the last census. They have some coffee shops, and it's starting to get much more popular. There's more people coming in. And I was talking to one of the coffee shop owners down there, and they were doing some sandwiches and paninis. And I was like, oh, yeah, do you guys go get the stuff over there from the Amish? They're like, no, we can't. We're only allowed as a restaurant to sell something that's come through a USDA facility. We are banned from buying any type of meats that don't go through a USDA inspection process first. And I was like, wait a second. The meats you're getting from birth to death here in the slaughterhouse got like 50 chemicals in them. And you got the super cleanest meat on the planet from these guys next door, literally a couple miles away. That makes no sense to me. And he's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either, but we have to follow the law. The law says they will close our restaurant down if our meats do not come through a USDA facility, period. Doesn't matter if it's lamb or whatever it is. And I was like, that is absolutely insane. You as a restaurant are not allowed to get your own meats from anywhere. You have to go through and be forced through this cattle chute, no pun intended, but that's the way it is. So Ransom, I'm done. Oh, yes, but as you see on there, please scan the QR code. Newsletter sign up. I sent that out just before the show tonight, and it was 10 bullet points of our last week's show. I know we run through a lot of information, ransomware. We just ramble about things, trying to connect giant ideas together to let us see and bend around the corner for a glimpse of the future. So if you like those kind of show notes, it comes in a one-pager. It's just 10 bullet points. Sign up for the show notes right over there at civilizationcycle.com. And that comes to you once a week just before we get on air here. And as always, thank everybody for the double espresso and the super chats over there on Civilization Cycle on Buy Me a Coffee. You know, we do have running costs with our software and different types. You know, again, the subscription model is getting overwhelming on how many subscriptions. You can't just buy software anymore. Like I remember when you could just buy software and it would just be on your computer and you were done, one price and you were done. Nothing is that anymore. And even I was looking at a new HVAC unit because I wanted to get a more efficient, speaking of all the smart device, we need a new heat pump out here because our old one is 20 some years old. We need a new one. So I talked to the local company. I said, give me a quote on this. And they go, okay, it's going to be this much. I think it says 10,000 or something installed. But then he's like, yeah, but you have to sign up for our monthly warranty or our monthly kind of maintenance program. And I was like, I don't understand that. It either breaks and I'll call you back out, or nope, you have to be. It's $28 a month and you have to sign up for it. So after you buy the unit from us and we install it for you, you're forced to go on the program of $28 a month for some kind of service thing, or they won't sell you a unit and come and install it. Again, this blackmail of getting forced onto a subscription, even for buying a simple product to have it put in and installed. They want you to get on a monthly subscription. It should be under warranty for 5 years. I don't need you guys at all. It's under warranty. Why would I pay? But they won't let you purchase the unit without going on their subscription program for their maintenance every month. Kind of ridiculous.
Well, think about it. That is the new way to restrain human productivity. So in the last, say, 50 to 100 years, it was energy. You needed energy to have productivity. So it kind of got all squeezed into electricity. People always ask, well, how come they don't let us have the next level energy generation? Well, it's because people would just sit around all day creating things and they would have the power and time to do that. What they've done is they've transitioned that idea from the electricity over to the subscription model. So like, say I wanted to make an AI movie, but I'm poor. I can only have so many subscriptions with so many credits, so I can only produce so many things. So they keep you down here limited on what you can produce. And if you think about it, like back in the day when you bought a program, you could sit there and work all night. You could work all night every day for months. The productivity would be skyrocketed based on you and your production using the software. But now you have to have a subscription. It only gives you so much data and so much time. And if you want more, you have to pay more to get on another level of subscription, right? It's the same thing as what you're talking about. They know that if you're not paying in monthly, then they're not going to cover your item, because then that would allow you to have productivity to be able to just buy an item, have it under warranty and wait till it breaks, have it replaced or repaired. No. We need money every month for you to even use our service. Things are turning into that everywhere. It's not just the digital platforms. That's kind of why I brought up that thing. They have like a service that's a monthly subscription, just in case one day something breaks in your house and you don't know how to fix it. And let's face it, most young people don't know how to do anything. So they're going to get stuck on these subscriptions. There's one for their car repair. There's one for their home repair. And then anything that they want to do that's like creative using software, they're going to have enough money to buy enough credits or a higher subscription to do any kind of productivity. And think about how much they've limited that. But that's okay, because the companies have unlimited energy and an unlimited amount of time with their own servers and AI. So from now on, there's not going to be the little guy all of a sudden making something that outproduces the big guy. The big guy will always be able to outproduce everybody, and thus they don't need all those people anyway. They need, I think they really are going for the goal of kind of like the Georgia Guidestones, except for it won't be 500 million people worldwide, or maybe that's the ultimate later goal. But for right now, I think they're gonna be okay with just 500 million per sector. So China, 500 million, North America, 500 million, South America, 500 million, Africa, 500 million, and Europe, 500 million. And then, that way they'll make sure that every single person is not only biometric, completely, in the system, but they'll all be on some kind of subscriptions, including food subscriptions. They've been getting us used to that. Don't worry about filling your refrigerator full of food. We'll just send you these packets, subscription. It's a box for planned out meals. And then not only that, they get to control every bit of where your food comes from, the packaging, the pricing, everything. And the more and more it gets like this, you're going to not be able to go to like Walmart or Albertsons or Smith's Groceries or whatever. You're just going to have a subscription to access the food. And then when you order the food, it'll be delivered right to your house if you can protect it. But of course, if you read the contract, that's on your end to protect. You have to protect your deliveries.
Grow your own. Just skip that nightmare, my friends.
What a nightmare it is.
All right. Thank you for sticking around for the first hour here at Civilization Cycle Podcast. We're going to roll through and take a short break, and we'll be back for the second hour. Please join us. Wanted to talk more about the AI pricing and what we can expect on this, how our lives are going to change as AI takes more and more control over what we need to pay for everything.
We've been told that tooth decay and gum disease are inevitable. But what if they're not? What if everything you've been taught about invasive treatments to restore your smile was a myth? As a bioterrain physician and herbalist with over 40 years experience, I'm well aware that teeth are living tissues that connect to every other part of the body. Your overall health starts in your mouth. This is why I've created nature's perfect formula to remineralize the teeth and heal the gums. Using a blend of powerful ancient oils and minerals, along with the latest and cutting-edge herbal technologies, I formulated the ultimate natural tooth serum to ensure a bright smile and healthy gums.
This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts, Alfa Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. We're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Don't forget to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle Podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And please remember, ladies and gentlemen, every purchase you make helps keep this podcast on air, bringing you information just like this. The censorship is tightening even further, and I am incredibly grateful that we have these sponsors that believe in sharing of information so we can get more ready for the changes that we're about to embark through. So please support them, and by supporting them, you're supporting us. Click on those links in the description box below. And on to the second hour of Civilization Cycle Podcast. And welcome back for the second hour. I appreciate your time. And again, it is all about sharing information. And why is it that as we see more and more, people want us to share less information? I think people are afraid of us having our own ideas after comparing information. It makes us more powerful too, because just on a personal note, today I was repairing my field mower. I didn't really know how to get down into the stator and get that flywheel off of there. But one of my neighbors, he'd repaired engines for many a year. And, Ransom, he knows quite a bit about repairing and, building himself. So, getting down in there, I had taken that motor apart last year a little bit with another person who was well versed at that too. Changed a bunch of things around. In my first days repairing that, I was terrified. Now I can run through the electrical system, look through a lot of stuff. But the one thing I didn't really know how to do was get those two crowbars on it, and he hit the center part of the flywheel after we stripped everything off with a brass hammer, not metal, but a brass hammer, without damaging the metal, and whoosh, that thing came off. But it took two people. And even watching a video on that, you probably would have used a regular metal hammer and damaged that thing so you couldn't reseat the, it's a big old nut that went on that thing. And even to have that kind of equipment around, now luckily he'd worked with tires before, so he had the correct size, but you're not going to find that in your average regular socket set, something with that large of a nut on it. And even the little, sockets that you got to put you need some torque behind it to get those things off and unseated. So I spent the 4 hours today stripping the engine down, putting the thing back together, readjusting everything on the mower, sharpening the blades, getting all the thing even so it, one of them doesn't spin on the tires and things. But that's all community information. And, the time we spent 4 hours working together on the motor, and then, talking about life and how he sees things moving and where I see things moving, and how are we getting ready? What about families here and that? That's just good quality time together. You can learn a lot about somebody when things go wrong. Although, we didn't really have that many problems. It was just stripping off the stator because it had melted. It's a field mower, so it got a lot of dust and thing in there, and the airflow wasn't as good. Those coils got a little gagged up with some dust in there. I'm sure a lot of dust. And I don't know if it shorted or if it got too hot. But, where the copper was winding around on that stator, just like about half of it melted, literally melted into black plastic around that thing. So stripping it off, everything is good as new. But that's the kind of information that you can't learn from a video. You really need to try and do it with somebody and get some practice with that. But, there's not a lot of people with that knowledge. So being able to share that kind of knowledge and then have a community around of people who are willing to come over and help you with that type of thing. I mean, I don't know what's so wrong about sharing different life ideas, talking about that at the same time, and then going off and having these conversations about, well, what if this does go wrong? What if what is the contingency plan? Well, you're my neighbor. Then what happens if this goes wrong? Because we know some people up and down the road, and there's some bad characters way at the far end, like 4 miles from us, but they know we're way down here with resources. So, like, then what? How do these people get together, and how do we organize we got 100 acres here and there's like 5 houses. So how do we protect this like side of the valley up here when people are going to come up knowing we got stuff down here? Just this kind of thing. These farms down here, how do you protect your farm? I mean, South Africa would be a perfect example. Like, how do you protect your farm? Well, you can't with overwhelming numbers coming in. But how would you these are the conversations, but why can't I talk about that? Why can't I talk about changing climate? So anyway, we're back. And before we even start, I had this one here for you. I wanted to riff on this for a second. This is the second one here. We were talking a little bit about this in the first hour. So Delta plans to use AI in ticket pricing, draws fire from US lawmakers. As well it should, but Airbnb does the exact same thing. Booking.com does the exact same thing. They already know your browsing history, at least on that session. And like for you to get to use the website, you have to click allow on things where they drop cookies in. So they already know what you're looking at. If you have a second choice, what your price point is, what your destination is at a very last minute booking, emergency. Same thing with Delta. But they're buying the data from other providers that know what your IP address is. So if you're using a VPN, it's more difficult for them to run their AI model on it. But if you have a static IP that never changes and you're not using a VPN and they can ping on you, they're buying that information from internet service provider companies. So whatever your broadband company is, Delta is paying for that information, and then they're co-matching these IP addresses. Once they can locate you that you're using and trying to find through Delta Airlines an airline ticket, they can ping back and find your IP and run your entire history, and they'll know what you're looking for. And at that point, in real time, they're able to see where you're looking for a last minute booking. Have you been comparing flights, all these things. So the airlines should not be allowed to gouge you like this, but they're laughing, talking about how profitable it is. And they're trying to reach max pain point and gouge as much as you possibly could. So they're putting, at least in the beginning rollout launch of this, 20% of the domestic network will be price on demand. Now, we've also seen this pricing on demand with facial recognition technologies in England, where you go into a supermarket and based on, they facially scan you. You already have a profile of what your credit score is, what your wealth, level is, and your preferences on purchasing. And like Ransom had mentioned, the price tag changes for the different people as they walk around the store. Now, apparently, if there's two people in proximity, it stays the same. But if you're an individual person and it's kind of off hours, the price tags change. They're digital price tags. So the digital price tag will change, and it will mark that whatever reader and all these little tags that they have on the boxes now, it will change the price in real time to lock that box in on a different price than if Ransom and I went in and we both bought the same item, we would get two different prices. See, this is what's happening across the world right now with this AI, and Delta Airlines is doing the exact same thing here with it. So they're forecasting for specific routes, special flights, demand, and it's just, they're using, and this is the whole thing right here, this paragraph where it says, senators, at least in the US, are finally coming around and going, all right, well, they can't be doing this. They're buying your personal information from the internet company you have a subscription with anyway, that you're paying monthly, should not be selling your information off to Delta Airlines so they can give you a higher ticket price. But they are. This is the collusion that's happening right now between everything in life that we need just to operate is being sold, and you're the commodity. You're being commoditized and you're being milked of your wealth. This is a wealth transfer program all run by AI, and everybody's complicit in it, which is sickening to say the least. And then we're on a family-friendly program, YouTube, so I'm going to refrain from using certain words. But you can see that they're charging different seat fares. Now, I understand that anyway, that you had different seat pricing for different parts of the cabin and economy and super economy and deluxe seating and all that other garbage they rolled out in the last few years, but this takes it to a completely different level. So let's say one of your parents dies, you need an emergency flight home, or they're going to gouge you because they know you have to get home. That they're not going to break you on the price. They're going to gouge you on the price, knowing that it's a last minute emergency flight and you will pay anything. So they can charge you 30%, 40% more, and you'll pay it because you didn't check with any other airlines. You always use Delta, so this is where the world is going to, which is downright scary. And Ransom, I know I hogged the first 10 minutes of the second hour. So
no, that's all right. I was just,
but you see, you talked about this so many times before, and now it's really in play now.
Well, all the signs were there, like when you started going to the internet and they wanted your zip code. They wanted your zip code so they could tell you what was in stock in your area, supposedly, but that's not really what it was. They wanted to know where you live so they could base pricing based on where you live, how
Home
many people are
Depot.
buying it. Yeah, all of that stuff. And not only that, think about, you know, I don't know how many years back it was. It had to have been at least 10 when everybody found out that these companies like Target, Walmart, Home Depot, you could just go down the name. They were pinging off your phone to see how long you spent in the store and which stores you went to and who you were. So they were connecting that data already to your identity on your shopping habits. So now it's like, you know, 100-fold that, where they know how everything, where you go, when you go actually in person to go buy stuff. They know about how many times you're going to use that disposable income. So they're going to start basing the price based on how much disposable income they think you have. In other words, if you have more money, things will cost more, unless you just buy like a lot, you know, like that'll be where it comes in to where you get these little, uh, kind of like a shopper's club based on your credit score. So if you're the right person with the right situation and the right credit limit, then everything will be cheap for you. But everybody else, it'll be based on, you know, your circumstance, where you live, how much you actually need it. And think about, you know, that kind of sounded like what you were saying there about the flight home to the death, that it would be like, oh my God, my country just turned communist and I want to fly out. And the airline's like, well, how much gold bars do you have? Or maybe we may or may not, you know, fly you out depending on what you have, based on all this metadata that we've acquired. And then it's funny to think that some people actually think they live secret lives. They don't. There's just so much metadata tied to everything. You know, information from credit card readers to license plate readers to, you know, traffic cams, all of that's intertwined, all of it. And it's all going somewhere, you know, into something. And I think that the reason that they kept so much information is they want to keep track of exactly who is going to be able to fit into the next system. In other words, people that can afford to fit in it or not. And things are going to start being segregated like private clubs, you know, like if you wanted to go party at a private club, but it's not going to be a private club for partying and drinking. It's going to be whether or not you get discounts on home repair stuff or food or whatever that is. It's all going to be based on this digital ID that's being formed so that you can have a copy of yourself literally represented in the metaverse. The metaverse isn't for you to just go shopping and have a good time. It's there to literally keep you enslaved and make sure that all the information is filtered, you know, just for you. All the products are priced right just for you. Like, say you went to Amazon and you were trying to buy parts to fix up something. If they know that you actually have that broken, they can now limit the search results to the ones that they want you to buy. That's the same thing that I was talking about Google. Google now has an AI that not only decides for you what factoids are what, kind of like Wikipedia, where someone programmed it. It's not actual real information. Just sometimes it is, and sometimes it's got a bias on it. Google does the same thing. But not only that, Google also sends you to the preferred uh, companies to buy your products from. So they can control all of that. And I think what that's all coming down to is because we're having some real problems, not to mention what I'm calling the great die-off or the population plateau, which we knew was coming for a long time. I mentioned that like years and years ago because it had already been figured out by a lot of smart people that the exponential climb of the population would all of a sudden stop. It would plateau and then it would start to reverse. And that's exactly where we're at. That's the point in time we're at right now. That's why I brought up that Chinese thing. And in the meantime, they're keeping you distracted with who shot Nelly in the belly with the meatball, what celebrity figure died, telling you that, you know, the man-made problems of the warming basketball is because of you. And then this is what's going to happen soon is the AI will decide how much the natural gas cost that goes to your house based on the temperature outlook of the upcoming year based on their AI models of what they say. So they're telling you that the world is burning up at the same time as you can clearly see that we're having actually a lot cooler times, but they don't want to tell you that. This is all cooler than normal. And if you remember Dubine was talking about these cool blotches coming down and then hot blotches coming down from the poles, or going up or going down, depending on which pole you're on. That's kind of what this is. This came in here. We're on a totally different system. This is going to be cooler than normal. This is the same area that was crying about excessive heat last year. This is all the same areas. And then you have all these storms. Of course, they're going to be deadly with more electricity and more tornadoes, because now you have this cool air meeting the hot air late into the year. So who knows what hurricane season is going to be like.
No, wait, Ransom, please hold on. That map, you understand, is a 30-year average baseline, the deviation from that. So what we have is 30 years of temperature record to look at. Usually, subtract, go back 30 years. So it'll be like 1990 to 2020 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it'll be 30 years of temperatures. And then this is the chart you're looking at. So of those total 30 years, this is the average that's different. And you look at that, and it is degrees Celsius. So it's not even a Fahrenheit chart. It's a degrees Celsius chart, which is far more, because it's 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit for every degree Celsius. So when you're looking at 4 to 6 degrees Celsius below the normal, that's like about 10 degrees Fahrenheit or so difference.
Right.
Like, you can find the Fahrenheit chart, but just understand that. So we get the last 30 years, they've been talking about hothouse, broiling, everything. So you got that 30 years of data, and this is the chart that's showing, whoa, we just blew way past that on the cooling side so deeply that, you don't need to run your AC.
I forgot to open it, but I saw a post kind of from the other set of thinking on these topics, where they were saying that, look, the globe, it's so hot, it's producing much more moisture. And I could tell that, we have actually been talking about that for years, since Tunga, that a bunch of extra, at least extra for the weather pattern, moisture was all up in the air, all over the place, worldwide. It went into both hemispheres, a lot more water. But to them, they hear the propaganda and they think, look, all of these floodings and the storms and everything, it's because global warming. That's why. They've been telling us for years that it would cause that. And really, I think it's more about this, this right here. This is where it all comes together. They don't want you to eat meat because, that's what we've always eaten, right? Not beef per se, but meat. We've always eaten meat, and we've ate bovine into the Pleistocene. We've been eating meat for a really long time. They give it credit for us getting bigger brains, which led to, hunter-gatherer societies, which led to eventually domestication of animals, farming, and civilization. The backbone was meat first. We've always known that, and now they're trying to replace this meat with something that they grow, to try to convince you that, less people is better. If less people were here, we wouldn't have to have these big ranches growing all these meats, and the cows wouldn't fart and all of this stuff. And they're trying to push you into this digital system where you're basically only going to get ration cards, a digital soup kitchen type thing. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're using money or digital assistance given to you by the government. It amounts to the same thing. It's based on how much worth a dollar is right now, but that'll change later. But this is what you're really seeing, is the destruction of civilization through reduced amounts of food. You see it on every angle. We need more war. Old people are dying. Everyone's infertile. Let's go ahead and reduce the amount of food that they could possibly get to stay, like we always have in the past. You needed meat to be healthy, strong people. So if there's a reduced meat, and they've been given a lot of excuses, there's screw worms, there's viruses, there's fungus, there's the fires, there's climate change, there's everything of why there's less beef. But we remember the last couple of years where millions and millions of animals were killed off. Thus, the overall population would be less because there was less to populate and less to work with. And now we're seeing everything the opposite world, where it's to the point where you're just going to have to pay a subscription to be a citizen of a smart city, or you won't even be able to exist. Here, meat's up, eggs up, electricity's up. They're talking about real cuts. I know that there's arguments on whether or not they aren't cutting Social Security, but it makes sense that the more and more you go into debt, eventually you're going to have to cut some programs. And if you have a dying population of, let's face it, elderly boomers that are going out, then you also would go ahead and be cutting those benefits that go to the people that were promised of a different era, because young people really don't fit into the Social Security equation. So of course they'd be cutting that, but that's less stuff. More than 40% of Americans see decline in real pay, and they talk about pay rates versus inflation. It's not happening. You're not getting paid the same amount as somebody else in a better economy in a different decade, where the money was worth a little more. Because they're going ahead and transitioning into the dollarless society where the paper money is going to be gone. And, there's a whole thing about super realistic counterfeit money everywhere. I've been seeing the local headlines. So if you read national headlines, you only get one set of propaganda. But if you start going around to the local states and then reading their crime, you actually get to see what's the pattern is. And there's all this counterfeit money out there, which is another excuse on top of the pandemic related reasons that they want to get rid of it. It's all different excuses for you to live smaller, live less, with less. And then introducing, these stable coin ideas. They're talking about it's going to trigger crisis in the heart of the financial industry. Everybody's scared of their control on what you buy and how you buy it. But
wait, they're going to strip the entire wealth, what you just talked about. So let's say
right.
your family had money to pass down to you, or your grandparents had money to pass down to you, or parents did. At the time of their parting, everything's going to be digitized, and they're either going to tax you at 50%, 80%, or they're just not going to let that wealth transfer down. Like there's certain eras of history where it just stops and everything resets back to zero again, and you just start from scratch. I believe we're at that point now. And, a lot of data, a lot of, historical correlations between this time and previous times. And, you got the miners trapped underground here, but I wanted to ping on here, if I could, with that. Just wanted to show you. It took me forever to find this one too, which I can't believe.
I was just kind of showing that to show you how still super valuable actual gold is, to the fact that we're stripping giant holes in the earth and having miners down in there still digging the gold out.
Dig it out. Hey, the Anunnaki still want their gold back. You see that dark blue? That's ice gains on Greenland as of July 24th. Now, Greenland is gaining ice, by the way. So, I went to Polar Portal, and anybody can go up there and check out. It's Polar, Polar Portal, portl.dk, and that's Denmark. So this is the accumulated ice since of last. Again, you're talking about averages. Now, the graph here, what you're looking at is the above average ice gain all the way until it dropped off, but it bounced back. And if you look at the bottom here, again, you're talking about 1981 to 2010 on the 30-year average on that. But as we look at 2024 season, which will end when the ice starts gaining back, probably around September 1st or so, is usually when they mark the end of the year. That blue line is above average ice gain on Greenland right now. So what Ransom showed you with that map, where it's cooler than average in the Northeast, and then we have this above average ice balance gain on Greenland. This is why you don't hear about Greenland, but you see those areas are very similar. So the Northeast US, if you continue past the Nova Scotia and you get up in the Newfoundland and that whole Maritimes of Canada, where do you run into? You run into Greenland immediately. So it's that whole swath up there that's cooling. And then we have the Atlantic cold blob that's ongoing right now as well. So you got to wonder, are all these related?
Right.
Atlantic cold blob, more ice on Greenland, and cooler conditions in the Northeast in the US. And I'll leave it there. And
well, not to mention, not to sound negative, but over the past couple of years, you've beat to death the idea of the worldwide reduction in grains for one reason or another. And then, I kind of jumped on the bandwagon talking about the future grain reductions of what I think, and we have all these war areas, destabilization. Now you're talking about cooler weather. And that there's another thing that leads into the meat prices too, is that there's less grain on the market to easily and cheaply feed your cattle. And this is the one I really wanted to throw to you.
You saw all those meat prices going up there? It's like $9 a pound for hamburger now, or $7 a pound. That article I got ready for you too as well.
And to put that in perspective, I used to be a butcher, and like every 4th of July or, holiday, the Memorial Day, Labor Day, whatever.
Independence Day.
Right. The meat prices would drop down to probably 68 cents a pound. And that was
that
was
you're talking the old days, man. No 68 cents. That's impossible.
That was around 2003, 2004, I think, right there. But just as a perspective, we're 20 years later and you're talking about almost $10 a pound for just hamburger meat.
And then what about a prime cut?
Well,
or something nice. That's a nice, juicy cut. I mean,
I saw at Walmart, when I was buying their organic grass fed, because they still have a line of other stuff you can buy, but none of the regular meat they chop up and put up there. No, I'm not vouching for none of it, but I was looking at the ribeyes just out of curiosity. And they had these two little bitty ribeyes on there, and they were $29 for like a couple to eat a small steak. And they still have to cook it, buy potatoes and all that. So of course you want to go over to Chili's and spend $20 for the same $20 and eat one of those nice, should I say spike protein beef treats that they have. Well, both people can eat, right? They can both have a steak. They can have some asparagus and some mashed potatoes. I know I'm saying mush because who knows what they make it out of at those places, right? But you can go do that. So when you're a family and you're thinking, hey, what do I buy? Let's just go to Chili's. It's the same price, and I don't have to cook it. And then we wonder why everybody's big and sick and all of this stuff, because they can't even afford to buy normal things, like I was saying, that has fueled human development the entirety of our history, which is beef or, meat. Okay. You can eat pork, chicken. You need to have some kind of animal fat protein, or you just get sick. You get lethargic. You have brain fog. These are all things that are known to happen when you have a one-sided diet, one way or the other. Like you could just sit there and eat meat all day. And there's people that argue that you don't need the greens because you're getting it through the meat. But the cows aren't being fed the same kind of good, luscious greens and field things that they once did in the past. So you do need to eat your greens. Sorry to inform you. But let's see, where was it? Here it is. This is the one I wanted to show you right here. You were talking about the Western world and what we rely on, wheat, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, everybody all of a sudden is allergic to wheat, even though we've been eating it, at least 5,000 years for sure.
State, man, it's all the chemical eating your gut apart.
Yeah, I don't know. That might not be true, because if you ask Grok AI and all of that stuff, they won't tell you that anything's wrong with any of this stuff.
It's not gluten. I'm absolutely unequivocally going to say on the record, it is not gluten. It is the fungicides, herbicides, and pesticides, in addition to the poor soils, depleted soils, and nitrogenous fertilizers that are jacked into the soils to grow it, that is a frankenfood that we're eating.
Well, yeah, and then see,
and it's GM as well.
They don't tell you that. That's not what this says. It blames it on gluten, and it says that's why you're depressed. That's why you're getting ADHD and schizophrenia. And
if your gut's all tweaked out, you're going to get ADHD. If your gut's tweaked, you're not doing anything, because your gut biome is the most important thing for the functionality of your brain. If your stomach and your intestines are out of kilter or out of balance, your brain's following that.
Yeah, I was
looking for it. Your brain follows what's happening in your stomach and your gut lining all the way through your intestinal tract.
For some reason, I can't find it. Let me look for it. It was an article exactly about your gut biome, and that scientists discover sixth sense in your gut that makes you want to eat more or eat less or whatever it was talking about. Because they're barely touching on the importance of the fact that I've read articles and papers written that say that your organs, like your stomach, your liver, all of that stuff, is actually literally part of your brain. So your brain isn't just the part that's protected. That's just your cognitive functions, right? It's running, but it's intertwined with all of these other organs that are made out of the same cells, right? And it's an intertwining network that has to all work properly. So if your gut is telling you that things are bad, of course you're going to feel sad, upset, angry, agitated, irritated. You're going to have brain fog. And that's basically what they're saying. But now they're acting like they just discovered something to find out that you may have actually a sixth sense in your stomach, that makes you feel uneasy about things, or maybe you feel threatened and your instinct to fight or flight may start happening when you sense a situation. Well, how's that going to happen if it's completely destroyed and you got, what do they call that? The leaky gut stuff. I mean, like, I saw a paper the other day that said at least 70% of Americans have that problem, either from not having the right gut fauna, taking medications, because one of their organs isn't working right. So the whole thing is like in tap. So now imagine turning off the power, less food, less beef, less nutrition, colder weather, pandemics, war. It's a pretty depressing thought, and it kind of makes sense why in other times people got sick more often and died off from diseases and things during those kind of outbreaks of activity in human behavior. It seems like those are always tied together. You can always go back, like even the volcano thing. If you think about this, yes, it reduces it reduces light from the sun, but on top of that, when it's dark and gloomy, it really does something to the human psyche. It's that doom and gloom feeling. If you get up every day, it's cloudy, it's gray, it's blowing, there's no sun, things aren't growing. Well, the human feels that too, along with missing nutrition because of the same circumstance. So we're like so in tune with nature that it literally needs to be sunny skies and happy days out there for us to be happy, which includes us eating and devouring things that come from that same environment.
Changes in latitudes, changes in attitudes.
And the happy animals. Do you want to eat fear, animals full of fear and they're not that great a shape either? And if they're eating that grain, then probably they're having ADHD and depression and all that stuff too. And then we're eating that versus like this cow that's running around with its herd, having the time of its life out in a field on a ranch somewhere. It's never been kidnapped and injected full of all kinds of medications. It's living a great life until we eat it. That's what I want to eat.
Yeah, I do as well. And for those of you out there, if you're going to order a full beef, like a whole cow, you might want to split it with somebody, because our meat costs, I think I'd have to get it around, it was either $2.25 a pound or $2.50 a pound live weight. So if you're going to, let's do easy math, like 1,000-pound animal, that'd be $2,500 if it was $2.50 a pound. And then you need to get it up to a butcher, and they're going to charge you a certain amount to dispatch the animal. And then they're going to charge you by hanging weight to get that thing butchered out. And Ransom can talk far more eloquently about that. But the price for that is $1 a pound right now for the fee. So Ransom, what would you say if it's 1,000-pound animal, you're going to be hanging weight at 600 or 650, and then that's a buck a pound, and then you're going to get everything from that. And we keep the bones and everything for our dogs anyway, but you're going to get those T-bones and the filet mignons and the ribeyes and everything that you get those cuts, and you can. You got a cut sheet there for a reason. So whatever you want to cut, you want to go rib, you want to go, flanks, or you want to get what they call like Korean cut with a little short rib in them. You're talking $29 for a steak. That is insane. You can get a whole freezer full of steaks. Like, I'm kidding you not. So we need 2 freezers for a full beef, and we even give some to friends and family and stuff. It's too much. But that prices comes down to, a few dollars per pound when you do it get the whole entire animal. So what do you think when you're going 1,000-pound animal, you're going to hang out 650 or something around there, 765 microphone?
I would thinking you would get 800 pounds plus of food product. I mean, you're counting everything, the head meat, everything that makes food. You would want to save that and make that into a product if you're buying the whole animal. If you're just cutting to just the beef parts, yeah, you would reduce the weight of stuff you're getting, of course. But that's just eating all the good parts, and you could resell or let them have it or whatever. But you said you had dogs.
We take everything. We take whole bones. We take it all because, we got some. We got a.
You would be smart if
dogs.
If you had the machinery. You should tell the guy, the butcher, if he has the machinery, that he could saw those big bones and scoop out that marrow and then throw it into what you're making your hamburger meat and out of the trimmings and stuff, and it would multiply the nutrition of that hamburger like a lot. I mean, just think about it.
Well, we do that anyway. We try to boil that down where they cut those bones directly in half, not the long way, vertical way, but get them in there and get that marrow out, and it really sets up a soup base. And I'm telling you, and then after it's cooked off and we extract that marrow, dogs get the rest to chew on, and they'll nibble on a bone, you know, like there's all kind of scapula bones and things. And dogs will nibble on that for like week, you know, those are some big bones, but
right.
You got to start thinking, you know, old school style where you like Ramsey, you don't want to throw anything away. But at the facility they're doing, when they cut the head, they don't let you have the head or the hooves. Otherwise, you know, anything's game. But we try not to keep the stomach. We tried to clean out stomach and do some tripe and stuff, but it was just too gritty from all the, you know, micro sand and stuff that they eat. So we don't do stomach anymore. The only thing we keep is like the heart, the liver, the lungs. We get those for the dogs, stuff like that.
Well, that's how you'll know that we're really starting to go in poor times, because all of those foods that are kind of attributed to poor people, like chitlins and things like that, that all came about because they didn't waste anything. And matter of fact, I did a video one time where I took my family up on the side of the mountain, and this is a survival technique that man has been using for hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years, even the animal. Is that if you find a skeleton that's already been eaten, you know, all the meat's gone, everything, you can still break open the bigger bones and get out that marrow. And I was showing them that, you know, it's there. It lasts a really long time. You can come across something that looks like, you know, it's been there for several years, break it apart, and there's still a big chunk of yellow, fatty marrow in the bigger bones of that stuff. And you can you can either boil it out, you know, to make sure there's no pathogens in it, or just start frying it. It burns like butter in a pan. Like you can literally put it right on an iron skillet, get it up, superheat it till it starts smoking. You know, you've killed everything in it. And now you've got a food base. Even if that's the only thing that you're eating, it's better than not having a meat source of some kind.
That'd be solid. Those oils, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you need those oils for your brain anyway. And this is another thing for prepping out there. You're going to need some oils. Like coconut oil is a good one. I store it in the freezer. I don't know what you're doing with oils, but you know, the lard we put in the freezer too. And, you know, we render down a lot of our own fats too. Like once we get, you know, we'll get a whole hog, it'll be like 375 pounds or something like that. But we always take the fat with it, and then we'll render down the fat. But there's a huge amount of possibilities. And then we get the chicharrones with that after we render it down. So you get those pork skins. Love those things.
You know,
I'm not afraid of eating those because it's not coming from factory. It's not baked in seed oils. It's actually coming from the animal's fat itself.
Right.
You know, so hugely, if I was going to say prep something and you only had a handful of items that you could possibly get, oils has got to be right in there at the very top. You need those oils. If you don't have those oils in your brain, you are not going to function, period. You are going to turn into a vegetable if you're just existing on vegetables. You need oil. You need those fats in your brain.
Yeah, not only that, if you don't have meat, but you do have stored, you know, like lard, manteca, whatever stuff it is, even when you put that in your soups or your beans or whatever, it tastes totally different. And your brain recognizes the animal content, and it just makes it a better, more nutritious thing. Not only from a flavor standpoint, it makes you feel like, so if you just did a pot of pinto beans, but you had some lard fat in there, it's going to taste totally different than if you just did it in water. You know what I mean? So, and I kind of wanted to ask you about this because I forgot to talk about it. Last week, I named the show What to Grow, you know, right now.
And we never talked about that.
And we never talked about it.
Show notes, and we never talked about it.
And so now I'm kind of wondering how those crops are going to do if we actually have a nice chilly winter this time, or if things keep becoming cloudy and kind of cool just in general. Because right now I have one patch of things that's doing great because it was in direct sunlight, and I tried to plan around the extreme sun here. Backfired on me this year. The water's not evaporating as fast. Everything in the shade got smothered from too much water. Then we had monsoon came in and kept it wet, so it didn't even have time to dry out. So what do you think, like how that's going to work out on people like planting late summer gardens and stuff for, you know, all of these different things? You can grow green beans and all the lettuces and everything, and they do all right in low temperatures to a point, but then when you hit that point, everything's dead. So I'm wondering, you know, what kind of harvest we're even going to be getting if, despite them saying we're having a severe summer, because I know that's not true. I live right here in the Southwest. We're usually having triple digits through June, July, and maybe even August if we didn't get a monsoon. But we got monsoon this year. It's been 60 all the way to 70 degrees at nighttime. That means it's been cooling off every single day. And even if it does get to 100 in the daytime, it's a cool night and the water's not evaporating as fast, which means it's going to be a colder winter, in my opinion. I mean, because there's more moisture here, period.
A lot of indications with these ocean surface temperature anomalies where we're seeing strange, cooler than normal off of West Africa. And we went through a few of those charts a couple weeks ago. Temperatures are still there, cold, and it's still showing that cold blob is ever increasing in those same areas you just showed offshore there in the Northeast US and south of the Maritimes, Canada. So conjecture is the polar vortex is going to be heavy and nonstop this year, where we're going to get really low dips, but it seems like it's going to be centered over Europe this year versus like it was last year where we got snow down to the Gulf and into Florida and all that stuff. And, you know, going back in history, the Seminole First Peoples always talked about it as the Great White Rain. And there was an actual name for that when it snowed in Florida almost every year, but it snowed way down near Miami. And they called it the Great White Rain because there were a few instances where the Everglades froze several years in a row. Not like super deep, like, you know, Lake Michigan ice or anything, but a glaze of ice across the Everglades where they were, moving around. And there was a term for that. And that was during the Maunder minimum. So it had at least occurred as an instance that was marked and noted before this time. So now we're getting something last year that was very close where the snow line was very, very far south last year. I mean, borderline record of anything we've known in the last couple hundred years south. But that whole vortex is supposed to be spinning and dropping in further into Europe this year. So will we be spared? I'm not sure, but I know we're going to get another couple wallops here. Will it go that far south down to the Gulf of Mexico and drop snow across the beaches again? I would say doubtful this year. But, you know, nothing's outside the realm of possibility. I would say look for snow in Spain this year, southern Spain. Probably see snow in Morocco, but it snows every year in Morocco in the mountains, in the Atlas Mountains. But I would say more coastal areas. And, you know, you might start to see snow in places like Libya and Tunisia, down coastal area where they never see snow. But you're going to start to see snows in real strange precipitation in a lot of places. Because in the Alps, just even as last week, they had that incredible heat island in the Mediterranean where it was like 90-degree Fahrenheit water. Like all the fish disappeared. They took off super deep. Fishermen are complaining because during high tourist season, that's where they make a lot of their money is they catch a lot of fish. They sell a lot of fish because there's a massive demand and all the restaurants are packed full. So fishermen generally can make an enormous amount of money this time of the year, but the water is so hot that the fish, they just took off. They're really deep. And they're outside the normal range for a lot of the guys that are fishing out there. So they're complaining that they're not making any money. The fisheries are kind of empty. Everything's gone deep. But at the same time that was occurring, they got over a foot of snow in the Alps. So the way that it works is hot water creates snow, apparently, in our world today. Had nothing to do with bending jet streams and magnetic field anomalies. The hot water in the Mediterranean created the conditions for a foot of snow to fall on the Alps. So again, hot in a hot boiling planet equals snow. And you know how this strangeness works.
Well, I thought we would do the famous AI search here and just ask.
Let me see it. Yeah. What do they got here?
Ask the AI. It says the winter 2025-26 forecast is still developing, but early predictions suggest a potential La Nina pattern could bring colder and snowier conditions to the northern and eastern U.S., while the Southwest may be drier than average. But it's wetter than average right now. I mean, we're flooding out every other day over here. So
no, wait, caveat to this one here. They're saying La Nina. Is that Atlantic Nina or is that Pacific general normal La Nina? Because there's both happening right now at the same time. We got cooling Atlantic and cooling Pacific. That I don't think AI is taking that into consideration, just from what I'm reading right there.
Right. Let's see. World forecast. How about that?
Yeah, and put in Atlantic Nina as well. That's kind of a term that they're giving this unusual, cooler than temperature. Yeah, winter. I would like to see the world forecast. Global, boiling, broiling. I like to broil my steaks in a global broiling.
Yeah, you see what I mean, though. This comes up, so it doesn't matter who you are or what you search. You get the AI, opinion about it first. So people are going to become more and more lazy and just start reading this as people tell them that the AI is legit and it has all the information. Let's see here. Pacific Ocean, there's the El Nino and La Nina here. Let's see. However, it's possibility to shift towards La Nina conditions developing in the fall and continuing into the winter. I do not see the Atlantic part of it there. Oh, here it is. Looking for more specific at the Atlantic region, forecasts suggest a potential for above normal precipitation in the Northeast New England, offering hopes for strong base building for snow and memorable nor'easters. All right, that sounds wonderful. So the AI seems to be telling me that it's going to be a cold winter this year, at least for the Americas. Let's see. I know Dubai's looking up some stuff. Possibility of Arctic air outbreaks in the central and eastern U.S. with the coldest conditions created over northern plains, Midwest, and the Northeast could lead to increased snowfall in the Great Lakes and Northeast. But, they're also saying, don't worry about it. It's a long-term forecast, so don't take it that seriously.
But I thought the models for 100 years out could determine exactly how much global tax we need to pay, and then you're not supposed to take a season out seriously because it's too far out. Well, unbelievable. Here, let me share this screen with you because you were right. How'd you know I was looking something up when you popped off there so I wouldn't?
Well, I didn't expect you to just take the AI's overview and just go, oh, well, that's what's going to happen. I can go back to sleep now.
Behave and behave. Here you go. So this is, they are talking the La Nina, but this is what is regular Pacific La Nina. And look how cold the temperatures are there. I mean, you're literally borderline off the chart on the cool where that darker is in the middle of the purple there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really an intense one. Now, I don't see if my mouse is where the Atlantic Nina is coming off there, but it is sort of pronounced there. If you follow my mouse around that blue that's coming all the way across the Atlantic to the Caribbean. And then we got the cold blob right here we were talking about. That's where the cold is, where it's cold over the Northeast U.S. Got the Atlantic cold blob there, really cold below Greenland now, and then Greenland's gaining ice everywhere. This map kind of matches up to what it says. And for those of you looking for this type of information, this is on Severe Weather EU, one of my favorites, because they'll show you how these right there. And then this, you can see where the Atlantic Nina is over on the side where it's at the equator and equatorial bands. And then a little bit further north where you can see those, striations coming off there. But look how cool it is off Baja. That's not, that's incredibly cold along the coast there. And then you can see the Nina forming, and that was on the 13th of July. So you got to realize that was, a couple weeks ago. And Coral Reef Watch has some of the best charts you ever want to find. So if you really want to go out and dive, Severe Weather EU consolidates it all. But if you're looking for the data point itself from the initiation of all this research that comes out for El Nino, La Nina research, you want to go to Coral Reef Watch. They got charts. You'd be stuck in there for hours looking at all the charts if you're a chart person and you're looking for information like this. So again, Celsius temperatures are cooler than Fahrenheit. So that's not even at a 10th of a degree yet, but it is trending cooler as we see here with the sea surface temperatures. Then if you want to take a look, this comes down in the different, the depths there, and it's 0, then you're going down 100. This is depth down below the water column when you're going down. And again, you're in degrees Celsius, which is cooler. And, your wind flow is going to be going something like this. So when you saw that gigantic purple, it's pushing, they're going westerlies on that. What's interesting, though, that equatorial band, I showed you those charts a couple weeks ago, even in that westerly flow, the winds were reversing coming east again at the highest recorded that ever had. So there's something with the circulation pattern, the way the easterlies were blowing inside the westerlies at high altitude, really high altitude. The wind was reversing during the regular seasonal norms. And the velocity, again, the potential of where are these winds going in the atmospheric column. So obviously you know, the circulation is what makes it's electrically driven anyway. So you're just looking at an electric chart, baby. So basically, so the wind is a reflection, or I should say, a relationship of how much electric current is in the system. Wind is a result of the electric transference in our atmosphere from high up to lower. That electric current coming down drives these winds. With no electric current or no global electric circuit around our planet, there's no wind. There would be no wind flow. It would stop literally if there, and that's a whole other thing. If our magnetic field's behaving strangely, it would affect the wind patterns, because the electrical discharge or transference within that potentiality of current flow is going to be way different. So when you start to see these winds behaving differently, the electric flow is different, which is coming from our sun, which is also in a changing state itself, and magnetic fields tweaking. So you can see all this, how they're totally connected together here, and why we're having so much strangeness. It's electrically driven. We live in this electric universe, for a better term. Everything's plasma around us as well, electrified plasma. And here you go. Here's another sea surface temperature coming off there. July 2025. It's really getting quite chilly. Now, what they're not really showing you is the Atlantic Nina, which is the craziest anomaly that happens. Not normal at all. And we have two Ninas occurring at the exact same time. So when we look at this, all right, so here's our, you talked about seasonal forecast. So I want to give you the other one here. So you got AI blasting you saying it's going to be super hot here, super hot there, da, da, da. Okay, so this is another forecast here. This is from the European models on the seasonal forecast. So here you go. The pressure is the temperature. So when we look at over North Australia into Indonesia, this whole area here that is blue, there's a possibility of it being cooler. And where it says 90 to 100%, I can't guarantee anything's 100%. Nothing's 100%. So, I mean, the percentile of 90 and above, great. But you can take a look at different forecasts on what you think their models might run. And especially down over south, you know, you get further south of into the Antarctic zones down there. But the analogs here, and okay, so here we go. If we're going to get a La Nina flow, this is what you're going to be looking for. So AI is trying to tell you that we're going to have an exceptional Nina. We just saw those charts. That's going to be like incredible. Those colors in there are pegging the chart. What we showed in that first purple color, a dark purple, that's off the edge of the chart. Like you're off the measurement scale at that point. It's somewhere above that measurement. It'll be measured eventually, but at that point you're off the chart unless they give a higher, you know, multiple on there where you can track it all the way out. So here's what the normal is. If it's an average La Nina, maybe a little bit strong, you're going to get a flow like this. Like all these guys who trade crops follow this religiously. This is their Bible. The La Nina El Nino pattern is a crop trader's Bible. They follow this. It's been like this for hundreds of years of people who trade crops, the grains, whatever it is, the beans, the pulses. So whatever Nina or whatever the AI is telling you, here's your map of what it's been like for hundreds of years when we get these El Nino events. Now, does it match up exactly? Not sure. But please remember, we got the Atlantic Nina as well happening. These two are coinciding, but this map will not accurately reflect that because this is only based on Pacific Nina. When you have an Atlantic and a Pacific El Nino or La Nina happening at the same time, that flow is definitely going to affect the winds going across the continents. So 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in this time. It's like 1 + 1 = 6 because the amplification on the winds.
Nope.
And the blue is the pressure difference here. So if you're looking at high pressure is blue, cooler temperatures, high pressure blocking systems. So you can start to already see where this thing is going to be lining up. And they're mapping it out for you. They already showed you the so if you're going, what they're showing you is back in time, the year 1985 had a very similar setup, if not almost exactly, with the same low pressure and high pressure systems in the same exact areas. So then they just go through and they show you in these same areas previously what it mapped out like, and they're predicting this year to be almost exactly like this. So they're just showing you previous years of when the same setup happened with the current conditions and the forecast going out over the next 3 months or so. So here it is. I didn't even see this chart, but I was saying it's going to probably snow in southern Spain, Morocco, and Libya and Tunisia. And here, that big dark blue circle right there, that's exactly where that snow would be.
Right.
And you know that left part there over North America, that's the same area of blue during the Maunder minimum that they'd mapped the temperature charts out, that was significantly below normal. If I could speak, below normal during that time.
So look at this. This is the map I think you're looking for right here. It shows this cold blob off of.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, you need to add that one in too. So that's a second variable that's not normally there.
But they won't give you. I can't get a bigger picture of it. But it's talking about that they're predicting basically another La Nina this winter. The problem I have with this is, you remember back in June, or I mean, I'm sorry, January, they were telling us we were going to have 33 named storms, and it all fizzled out this spring, and we didn't have
We've
really
had two
anything
so far, two.
right? And now they're saying 13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, and 3 to 5 major hurricanes this fall from the Atlantic hurricane season. And yeah, that's what they're saying. So supposedly cold with a lot of hurricanes. So we might have that condition. I don't remember what year it was, but they had the hurricane roll up on the nor'easter.
Been a few. It's hard to keep track. I mean, nothing's really like it never happened before. It's just like, how far back did it happen before? In the 1700s? Well, that's a 300-year cycle then. Or was it in the 1600s and we saw that once 400 years ago? I mean, obviously there's cycles within that. It's not like we've never ever seen.
And what's so funny is, I know that one day, I don't know, a volcano off the coast of Oregon or something like that underwater is going to pop a lot more moisture in the air, and then the whole cycle's off, right? It's off for years after that, and it may not even rebound to the same cycle. It may make a new cycle that starts happening. So that's kind of crazy, the idea that anytime, just any event will shake up not only nature, but the world we're living in. But it seems to me that they are planning for some kind of catastrophic event. I mean, it's almost like they know exactly what it's going to be. I'm not saying that that's a conspiracy theory, but all of these steps that they're lining up are for a whole total rebound and reset of everything, where they'll be ready to go. And, I was just thinking about this whole idea. This is the first time in human history that something can happen on the globe, on a global scale, and a bunch of continuity of government people just crawl. Well, maybe it's the first time, that could be disputed from some of the ancient tales, but this could be the first time that humans will just bounce right out with rockets, helicopters, satellites. It's all throwaway technology. We know how to build it. It's not meant to last that long. It's all temporary. That's the new technology. And now we're adding in, these other ideas that we know that they can do, like, the synthetic DNA idea. That basically means that even if stuff crashed right now, even a semi-technological society, even if we fail, could come across that, and they would find that, and they would like, wow, this is how you build that. Here, let's put up satellites and rockets and everything again. It's all the information's right here. Why would they be making stuff like that? You know what I mean? They're making stuff like that to ensure that no matter what happens, they're in control. They know how to use it. The technology's down there. So you can just imagine the people that go in the hole have that technology. They come out, they go through these disaster zones. What's this? Is that what we're looking for? I don't know. Scan it. Boom. Whole blueprints to the whole thing. There it is. Yep. This is what we're looking for. It's reacquired. Meanwhile, the people on the surface, well, population reduction time.
Archaeological digs, man. They're not about history. It's about refining the old technology. I do appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for your valuable time when Ransom and I are trying to put some ideas together. And please leave your comments below, because we try to read those through the week. What's on your mind that we've spoken about tonight, that you see something that mirrors that, or you have another dot of information that might connect to create a wider tapestry? All comments are valid and welcome. So please, write something below. We try to read that. And till next week, please remember, buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle, and also visit our sponsors for tonight as well. Those links are in the description box, and we'll see you next week. Say it up. Bye for now. Mic on, mic off. Peace.